And that made me so mad because y'all built them damn levees in San Joaquin County, Sacramento County. And I can tell you as a resident that it has flooded every 2.5 years since you motherfuckers left. We need to get y'all back. Anybody want to... I'm being sarcastic, I'm joking, but let us talk about it. So, much love for the town of Locke. Much love to Walnut Grove. We're talking specifically about Locke. This was one of the last Chinatowns to form in this region, Sacramento County. Let us talk about it. I was unaware of this until recent. I was unaware. And it blew my mind that everybody in Woodbridge, Lodi, and apparently every white man with a motorcycle over the age of 59 knows about this. I'm saying that because when you go out there, they got a bar to cut auto wops, and that whole area is a really popular spot for me when you go to Locke. So, this was a Chinatown. The Chinese migrants that were in this town, these were the ones that built the levees. They worked in the irrigation canals. They worked in the asparagus fields, but they're more known for building the levees in Sacramento County and in San Joaquin, essentially the Delta area. I want to tell the whole story, and this is why this video is going to be on Patreon. So when we talk about Chinese migration to that area, to Walnut Grove used to be a heavy Chinese populated area too. That and Japanese town, that and a lot of Japanese there too. I'm going somewhere with this. We have to go back to the 1800s. We have to go back when Chinese first started making their way to California. A lot of y'all are familiar with the idea that a lot of Chinese migrants, when they came to California, they came here as laborers working on the rail yards. They worked in the railroads to help build the railroads. The particular Chinese that came from this particular province in China that came to Walnut Grove and came to Locke at a later date, they actually built the levees, worked in the irrigation canals, worked in the asparagus fields. At this point, we have to talk about the Chinese Exclusion Act of 1882. Why? Because this was the federal law they had passed. This was a law they passed to say banning all Chinese laborer immigration to the United States at this point. No more Chinese labor immigration to this point. At this point, we're in California. California was indeed very racist at that time. There was a lot of anti-Chinese, anti-Oriental, anti-Japanese sentiment. A lot of European migrants felt like the Chinese migrants were a threat to the European Americans' place in the work field. And as we get later into this video, we are going to talk about the California Alien Law Act of 1913, but we'll get back to that later. So those who were already here, they were fine. They could stay. They had to always carry their immigration papers and do it, but nobody else could come here for the purpose of labor from China. Cool. At this time, it's important to say that because it's important to paint the atmosphere of why all these Chinese fucking migrants settled at the end of the Sacramento River. At this time, be honest with you, most whites did not want Chinese living with them in their neighborhood. So the only place they had is these obscure ass places, these obscure ass towns in the Delta. That's how Walnut Grove formed. There was a fire. Well, Walnut Grove was a heavily Chinese and Japanese settled area. There was a fire that took place around 1913. Big fire that left a lot of, basically the whole population there, or half of them, without a place to stay. This is when we get into the passing of the 1913 California Alien Law Act. What this law did was, if you were of an alien status or an ineligible alien origin, you could not own land in California. You could not rent or own land in California. That's all. You could rent, but you couldn't own it. You could lease, as long as the lease was temporarily 3 years. The only saving grace to that was if you already owned your land, you could still own it, but nobody else could buy none. This is how those who in Sacramento who formed that own thing of Japantown in Sacramento, I touched on that in a different video. This is how they were still able to keep their property during this time. I'm going somewhere with this. So what happened is when you had that fire that took place in Walnut Grove is right next to Locke. When that fire took place, a lot of Japanese migrants and Chinese immigrants, laborers, were without a place to stay. There was a man named George Locke who would have had a very, very, very successful furniture business in Old Sacramento. He happened to own a lot of land up the street from Walnut Grove. He made a deal where all the Chinese immigrants could come there, build land, build homes, build home, build business, set up shop there, and they just leased the land or paid a lease to the land. Okay, cool. This is how we get into discussing the history of the birth of Locke, which was birthed in 1915. Great town, great place. Chinese naturally are very entrepreneurial people, so you saw a lot of businesses form there. You saw boarding rooms, you saw hotels, you saw nightclubs, you saw a whole vibe. This genuinely actually used to be the place to be back in the day. I do have to acknowledge this. This did form a little bit pre-Prohibition era, and during the Prohibition era, this ended up being kind of almost like a baby red light district, if you get what I'm saying. There were brothels there, there was bars there, there was an underworld aspect of it, there was a gambling there. And I'm not gonna lie to you, bro. When I started reading through the history of the news archives, the Sacramento Bee, bruh, I ain't gonna hold you. Even back in them days, a lot of motherfuckers got killed in that neighborhood, bro. I ain't gonna hold you. I was reading that shit like, god damn, like they was finding motherfuckers in the river, niggas was robbed, like a lot of that a thriving neighborhood, a lot of working class people. But I'm telling you, I don't know if they were maybe trying to just paint it as a terrible place to be because it was mostly Asian, but I can tell you, they was knocking us down over there like that. It didn't seem like it reminded me of Storyville in New Orleans, like. But it was nevertheless, it still was a thriving place to be, Chinese owned, etc., etc. There was a decline that came towards the 1950s and 1960s, but it was very slow. It wasn't really that the area ever declined or suffered from economic hits. It was because once they took down the California Alien Land Law Act, which would allow you to, which meant if you were, oh, I forgot to bring this about the Alien Land Law. Let me bring this up. When they had that law in effect, it only applied to Asians. It only applied to Asians, Japanese, and Chinese people. It's kind of the same thing, like, say, for example, when we were in World War II, when they opened up the internment camps and started pushing Japanese people in the internment camps, they overwhelmingly only did that with Japanese. There were some times in certain states, if you went way down south, where they did with some German immigrants, but Germans, for the most part, didn't go through that. When you go to actually Locke, one boarding room that they had there that was owned by Miss Kuromoto, she and her family were actually put in an internment camp too and lost their property. And after we were let outside the internment camp, each of their family members, they think she received like $2,000, which I don't think that's good enough money for me to lose my fucking business and be put in the goddamn, it is what it is. But the decline of the town, you start seeing more people move away from there. It came when essentially people were allowed as Asians to go to other places and buy property. So that became a thing too. People started moving away and moving from work. And I ain't gonna hold you, bro. I just was there today. There's still Asians who do live there. When I went to Outer Wops Bar, shout out to Outer Wops Bar, shout out to the bartender at Outer Wops. He showed me a lot of love. He was a really cool ass dude. There was this Asian lady there. Her name was Carol. I talked to her. Really sweet lady. Really, really, really gave me really good vibes. And she was telling me about the history of the town. And she was also telling me the difference between a Chinatown and a Chinese town. Like, I didn't know, apparently there is a difference between those terms. And she was telling me, like, yeah, my family built the levees, who was here for etc. Like, it's... When I went there today, I wish I could express in words how much going there today motivated me. Like, it really motivated me to make the content that I make. Like, I love going somewhere, bro, and just seeing, like, reminders about the world. Like, bro, I've slid through there dozens of times. I crashed my moped. I crashed my moped on River City Road. I used to take my motorcycle on River City Road. I used to go back from work back and forth there when I was working in Rio Vista. I never knew that was there. I never knew that was there. And bro, when you walk around the town, bro, when you see the architects, when you see how the homes were built, when you see... And it's the hangout spot, bro. When you go on the weekend, bro, from what I understand, bro, it's the spot to be. Like, a lot of dudes, like, from the MCs, the bike clubs, they go out there. My daddy be out there. So, it's at my dad's motorcycle club. So, if you're ever in the region, if you're ever on River City Road, just slide through there, bro, and take a look, bro. It's right next to Walnut Grove. You pass it, you can almost it's easy to miss, but, bro, it's a surreal experience walking through those streets, walking to that bar, talking to the people there. So, I want to say... much love to Locke. Much love to Walnut Grove. Shout out to the people that showed me so much love today as I went there and was getting research. Like, much love to y'all. I appreciate y'all. And, like, it was a dope experience, man.